As I analyze by these different subgroups, I'm now looking at a smaller sample size. Let's say that the sample is evenly divided between each of the subgroups. So I've got 250 people in each of those age segments. As I compare, let's say, the youngest group to the next youngest group, I'm now dealing with a sample size of 250. So my margin of error is going to be much bigger than if I were just looking at the total for the whole population. Now, I want to deal with the issue of sampling bias. Now, let's say that on this particular network where my commercial is going to air, there's a much smaller percentage of older people, let's say. So I'm interviewing people, my population are people that watch a particular network, and I start doing my sample, and I've got very few older people. Well, what I might want to do is oversample to make sure that my sample of older people, or my subsample of older people, is large enough that I can analyze the data and compare this older group to the younger groups. So by oversampling, I'm going to start contacting people that are older and ensuring that I have a large enough sample. And then what I could do on the back end, in other words, when I'm doing my analysis, is I can weight the data. So when I'm looking at my total, those older people are not going to represent a larger population, a larger size than they actually represent. I'm going to weight them in such a way that their true numbers are reflective. But by the same token, I've got myself 250 older people, so I have a large enough sample that I can compare. Okay, so it gets a little bit complicated, but what I want you to focus on are the big picture concepts. The idea of margin of error. In other words, when you're doing a sample, you're always dealing with an error, and the larger that sample is, the smaller the error is going to be. Now, let's talk a bit about statistics. And I think it is much more apropos to be talking about statistics in a few weeks when we're talking about data analysis. But I do want to address the issue. The book mentions a couple kinds of statistical techniques. And what I really want you to get out of that is that you can go beyond comparing simple percentages, what's known as a crosstab analysis. Think of an Excel spreadsheet where you have, in research, it's called banners, your columns, and then you have your rows. Let's say the rows are answers to specific questions. I like this commercial because I thought it was fun. I like this commercial because it appealed to people like me. Those are my rows. But my columns are going to be my age breakdowns, let's say, 18 to 24-year-olds, 25 to 30-year-olds, 35 to 40-year-olds. That's a simple crosstab analysis where I'm just looking at percentages of people. I'm looking at descriptive statistics. But I may want to get more insights from my data, and I can get that through statistics. For instance, regression analysis. Now, the book uses the example of customer satisfaction and what drives customer satisfaction. I can ask people, what's important to you when selecting an automobile? And people might say price is very important, and they might say style is very important, and that all of these things lead ultimately to satisfaction. But if they agree with everything, it's very difficult for me to really get to the bottom of things. But what I can do is a regression analysis, which correlates to the extent that each one of these different attributes or variables correlates with actual customer satisfaction. In other words, as perceptions of price, satisfaction with price go up or down with select respondents, that doesn't seem to have an effect on total satisfaction. Whereas if I look at customer service, when customer service goes up, satisfaction goes up. So I'm able to use regression techniques to establish what my true drivers of customer satisfaction are. Point here is that statistics can yield a lot. The book talks about factor analysis and cluster analysis, and the point there is that statistically I can subdivide my respondents into distinct groups. Let's say doing a factor analysis, I'm able to find different types of people that are turned on by different things at a car dealership. Some people are looking for that personal experience with a salesperson. Some people are turned on because they like looking at cars. Some people are looking for a fun thing to do on a Saturday afternoon. And using statistics, I'm able to develop clusters. But we'll get into that more when we get into data analysis. It's complicated stuff. I just want you to focus on the big picture, and I'll see you next week.